recently we have looked at completing the square to solve some quadratic equations, and now we're going to try and apply that to any and all quadratic equation possible. So, quadratic equation always has some x squareds, it might have some x's, and it might have some other thing added, and we usually solve that equal to 0. If this isn't 0 and it's some other value, we can just take that away to change the value of c to make it 0. So this is what we call the generic or the standard quadratic equation. So that is a general quadratic equation. It's all quadratic equations. We're going to try and complete the square to this. Now this is going to get messy in the middle. Don't panic. You don't need to do this yourself very often, or even ever for an exam, maybe for your own pleasure. But what we get at the end is going to be a very useful and powerful result. So completing the square is easiest if I only have one x squared. So the first step I'm going to do is divide by a. So we get x squared plus b eighths of x plus c eighths is 0 divided by a is just 0. As you know, when you complete the square, we halve the middle term. So we get x plus b over 2a, because it's been halved now, squared. We take away the adjustment, which is going to be b over 2a squared, and we still have the constant at the end. Alright, I'm going to do some work with this set of fractions here to try and simplify. Actually, I'm going to do it on this side of the equation first of all. So what I'm going to do is add b on 2a squared and take c over a. So that gets us b over 2a all squared take c over a. Now all I'm going to do from here for a little bit is make this right hand side neater using our fraction work. So square that bracket gets us b squared over 4a squared take c over a. Because these are fractions we're going to take away, we need to find a common denominator. That's going to be 4a squareds. So to get that to be 4a squareds, I've got to multiply by 4a. So this top becomes 4ac. So I've multiplied top and bottom here by 4a to get 4ac and 4a squared. When we subtract those, the square's gone walkabout there, we get b squared take 4ac all over 4a squared. So that is equal to the left hand side, which I haven't touched for a while. Okay, we are trying to get this x over here by itself, so to get rid of this bracket I'm going to do some square rooting. So if I square root both sides, I get x, both on the page at once, plus b over 2a is plus or minus the square root of b squared take 4ac all over 4a squared. And then working on this part of the equation, this bottom of this denominator is all square, so I can square root that. So I'll have plus or minus the square root of b squared take 4ac, and then I'll divide that all by just 2a, because that's the square root of 4a squared. Finally, to get x by itself, I'm going to take away this fraction from it. So take away b over 2a, and that gets us x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared take 4ac over 2a, and oh look, that's the same denominator. So that means x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared take 4ac all over 2a. And this thing at the end has a name because it's so very important. So starting with any quadratic equation, you will be able to get x by itself in this format. So if I know what the values a, b and c are, I can just use them for a, b and c in here and get the value of x out straight away with no working out. This is a formula that solves quadratic equations, which means it is called the quadratic formula. And you will need to know that by heart for your GCSE exams, because it's not given to you anymore. Once you've done your GCSEs, it's programmed into every calculator you'll ever buy, and therefore never need to remember it again. But it's very useful because there are some other shortcuts we can do using its format. So that is the quadratic formula. Get that learnt. If you want to see where it came from, you can look at the rest of the video, but that's the key fact.